Hello and welcome. My name is Chris Bonpastori. I'm a technical support advisor here at Quest. We also have Mac McWay, technical product specialist, who will also be presenting today. In addition, we have Chris Higgins and Roger Layton, Desktop Authority's product managers, and Chris Harris, our development manager. They will be able to assist in answering any questions that come up during this presentation. During the presentation, the phone lines will remain muted, and all questions can be submitted using Webex chat. Any unanswered questions will be responded to via email. I will also be sending a follow-up email with a recording of the presentation and a companion document that will contain all related links and any other important information discussed today. As many of you may know, support for Desktop Authority 9.3 will be discontinued February 7th. When support is discontinued for an older version, there will be no new patches or fixes supplied for that version. The download files will be removed from the support portal, and any future technical assistance for that version will be limited to providing information on how to upgrade to a supported version. This webinar today is being offered to go over the entire upgrade process in hopes that any questions or concerns preventing you from upgrading to the current version can be addressed. It's important to upgrade to the latest version of Desktop Authority before version 9.3 is discontinued to avoid any issues with the removal of the download files and its support. In this webinar, we will be going over the upgrade path, upgrade preparation, alternate upgrade options. I will go through a live demo of the upgrade from 9.3 to 10.1. I will also go over the post-upgrade configuration and updating a client. Then Mac will give a more in-depth explanation of parallel installations. And finally, any available time at the end will be used for Q&A. Older versions of Desktop Authority cannot be upgraded directly to version 10.1. The upgrade path shows the order of operations when upgrading to older versions, from older versions. To upgrade from version 10.1, you need to be on at least version 9.3. If anyone is still running version 8.1.2, I suggest downloading a copy of version 9.3 from our website if you have not done so already, before it is no longer available for download starting February 7th. Other than downloading the files and running the upgrade, there are a few things you can do in preparation that will help minimize any issues that come up during the upgrade. When preparing for the upgrade, the first thing to do is verify your Desktop Authority license. Make sure you have a current copy of the Register INI in case it needs to be re-imported. To view your current license status or to import a new license, click the registration link at the bottom right-hand corner of the Desktop Authority console. This will show the current license information. If the license information is not correct or current, you can use our key refresh tool. Use this website to have your current Desktop Authority license file emailed to you. If you are still running version 8.1.2, you are required to get a new license file, even if your current license shows the correct dates prior to upgrading. If this is the case, you will need to contact the license department to get a new license file. The next step when preparing for the upgrade is to back up your data. You should always perform a backup before installing any product upgrade, in order to assure a successful recovery should your upgrade fail for any reason. In addition to backing up the Desktop Authority databases, the DA profiles can be exported as an additional level of security. Now, this is not a required step, but it is recommended. If there are any issues with the database backup, a new database can be created and the exported profiles can be imported directly into the console. Finally, the last step in preparation, you should update your antivirus exceptions. Due to the product rebranding, most of the file paths have changed. Make sure to update your antivirus exceptions so that the new locations are excluded. The technical article that has the updated file paths will be included in the companion document. All of the system requirements can be found in the installation and upgrade guide. A few items that are important to note are Windows XP, Vista, 8.0, and Server 2003 are no longer supported. The client will not install on these versions, and the validation logic options have been removed. You can also no longer install or upgrade the DA console on Server 2003. Also no longer supported is SQL 2005. Supported SQL versions are 2008 through 2016. If on SQL version 2005, SQL either needs to be upgraded or the database needs to be moved to a supported version. Finally, the domain functional level now needs to be 2008 or above. When planning your upgrade, it's important to note there are some additional options other than doing an in-place upgrade on your current Desktop Authority server. You have the option to do a migration to a different server. You also have the option to install the new version of DA on another server independent of the current installation. With a migration, there are two options, each with different steps. The first option is to migrate DA to a new server when SQL is installed on a secondary server. The second option is to migrate DA to a new server when SQL is installed on the same server as the DA installation and needs to be migrated as well. When migrating using a secondary SQL server, there is no need to move the DA databases. All that needs to be done is stop the Desktop Authority operations and manager services on the current DA server, then install DA on the new server. During the install, it will ask if you want to use an existing SQL Server instance or create a new one. Choose the option to use an existing SQL Server instance. The upgrade will see that the DA databases already exist and upgrade them. If SQL is installed on the DA server and needs to be migrated as well, then back up the current DA databases and either install SQL on the new DA server and restore the databases there, or restore the databases on an existing secondary SQL server. The most important point is that the databases are moved prior to running the install, so that the DA upgrade process can find the databases and upgrade them. Now, there are two technical articles available, one for each of these scenarios, and I will include the links in the companion document. A side-by-side or parallel installation is what we call a new installation that is installed and configured on the same domain as an existing installation of Desktop Authority. The main reason this will be done is to test the new console and client prior to doing the actual upgrade on your production servers. This requires some additional configuration steps so that the two installations do not interfere with each other. I will include the technical article on how to configure this in the companion document, and Mac will go over this option more in depth at the end of the webinar. So at this point, I would like to go over the upgrade process so that you can get an idea of what the process includes and how long it will take. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to back up our data. Let's go ahead and run through that real quick. You can go to if you go to the Dell dropdown, if you're running 9.3, it's still the old name there. And you're going to go to the Desktop Authority Setup tool. All right. First thing you'll do is you'll have to connect to your database. Green check, you'll check the properties. Good. And you'll go to the DB Tasks, Database Tasks tab. Desktop Authority has two databases. One will be the DA configuration, one will be the DA reporting database, so I'll have to export them both. Highlight the database name, and then you'll browse to where you want to save it. I'll automatically give it a file name. And you can enter any additional information here if you would like. Backup database. All right. That'll give you a BAK file that can be imported directly into SQL. And so we'll do the same thing for the reporting process. Okay, so both of the databases have been backed up. There was an additional step here. Let's go ahead and get in the console. Export our profiles. All right, so see I have two user profiles here, and you can export them individually by highlighting the actual profile, using the Actions dropdown, Export. Or if you've got multiple profiles, you can actually click on the word Profiles, get them all at once. Make sure that we have the two here, user and computer. Go to the computer as well. Check to see if you have any profiles that need exporting there. All right, so what we would do next is we would have to download the actual file. I've already got downloaded, but I'll show you where it's located here. Just go to support.quest.com/desktop authority. It'll put the version in automatically for you. You'll go on the left here to software downloads and choose the bottom one. Full build update is what you want. I've already done that. I have it here on the desktop. As you can see also I have my backup files, 2 BAK files and the exported profiles as well. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and launch this here and take a look at the process. All right, and it's going to need to accept the license agreement. And this is another warning here reminding you that you need to update your antivirus to include the new file paths because the names have changed. Okay, so you have two options here. The Express upgrade, if you choose the Express upgrade, it will skip all the typical installation dialogues, confirm all the prerequisites, and go directly to the review dialog. It's going to be the fastest option. Most people will use it if you're not going to change anything. So obviously then you have Custom Upgrade. Custom Upgrade allows you to proceed through the installation dialogues with permission to modify existing settings. If any settings need to be changed, you can change them using the Custom Upgrade. For the demonstration, we're just going to use Express. Most people just use that one. Okay. It'll check any prerequisites. If you have any prerequisites that are not installed already or need to be additional pieces added to it, it'll give you a little box on the right-hand side. You just click on that, let those install, and it'll turn all green checks, and we'll continue from there. Here's asking you if you want to do another backup, or it's going to automatically do a backup. It's asking you if you want to keep the backup. You can check these boxes here to keep those backup files, but if you've already got them, you don't need to. Next here. And this is off network remote management. You have the option to not install that. If you change your mind later on, you can always go back and the setup tool and turn that on there. So we'll leave it on and we'll go next. All right, so we're already into the review, and you can go ahead and just click install, and it'll go through all the processes. All right, so let's take roughly about 4 or 5 minutes or so. So if we have any questions here, let's take a look. I got a question here. If the processes applies from 10 to 10.0 to 10.1, is it going to be specific? Are these instructions specific from 9.3 to 10.1? It's basically the same. You're not going to see much of a difference as far as the Express upgrade process itself. And somebody else had a question about what are the options for backups. So other than the setup tool that I showed, you can even use the SQL Server Management tool and just do an export there, backup of the profiles. The same file gets created .bak. If you've already got a secondary SQL server and the DBAs are automatically backing those up, then you can obviously skip that process. Even inside the upgrade itself, those two checkboxes, if you check those, you'll keep that upgrade, that database backup. So you can have a copy of it there. Yes, we will be offering the recorded version. I'll send it, it'll be a follow-up email along with that commanding document with any links. Another question about automating profile backups. Not at this moment. You could do, if you had database backups, it would be the best way to automate that. You could run it maybe once a week or so, export them, and keep a copy of them somewhere, though. Question about length of time here. It'll be relatively the same. There is the portion where it would backs up the databases. If it's a larger environment, the reporting database might be considerably larger than mine because I don't have really many machines here in my test environment. So it may slow down a little bit, but it's relatively, usually around 5 minutes or so. All right, so it's finished here, so we'll click on the Finish button. Should take you right in there. All right, so now we have the new Quest logo here. And it looks relatively the same. There's not going to much difference there. You'll see that obviously the logos will change. What we can do now next is we're going to, let's go. So if you were doing a migration, it's important to note that there will be a few spots inside the console you'll want to check to make sure that actual server name changed, because the original DA server will no longer exist, and that's not going to get changed automatically. You have to change that manually. All right, so what you'll do is you go to Deployment Settings. This is only for migration. You have Replication Options tab. The source server would need to be changed manually. And then one other spot to change here, if you go to Client Configuration, you need to check your profiles, your user-based profiles only. Under each user-based profile, there's going to be a logging section. If this is turned on, you will have a path here. You'll need to change the server name there as well. And that's for each individual profile. Another good thing to check, I like to check when I do an upgrade, is that if you're using Desktop Authority's Client Deployment GPO, just double check that everything looks fine there. You can even do a verify to make sure that the GPO has been pushed out correctly. All right, so that'll be under Deployment Settings, Client Deployment, and GPO Deployment. I currently don't have anything set up here, but you'd see the information listed here in this line, and you can highlight it and just verify GPO just to make sure everything checks out. And then your last step would be to go back to Server Manager. So now at this point, if we didn't change anything with the GPO, we weren't using the GPO, technically your clients would still work running 9.3. We haven't touched any of the services. We haven't replicated yet. Now at this point, we're going to be switching everybody over. You can see that it shows that the services are outdated. You would highlight your servers. If you've got multiple servers, you can actually do this all at once. What you can do is you can check this box here, and we'll select all servers at once. Then you use the drop-down menus, starting with Administrative Service. You'll have the option Upgrade Service. Click on that. Run through the process. Okay. See that the service is started. It's green. So now we will use the next drop-down, Update Service, and then click on Upgrade Service. Okay, so it shows started in green as well. So now at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to tell the client files to update. Click on the drop down here next to replicate changed files. And there's the option to force an update. Click on that, client files. Yes to the prompts. And then our final step here is to push those files out to your shares. Since we're doing an upgrade, these steps don't have to be done every time. Just because we just did an upgrade, it's good to force an update and then also do replicate all files. Normally, when you just make normal changes inside the console, just do replicate changed files. All right, verify that we want to replicate. Now, once this completes, the new version will be effectively pushed out. Your services are version specific. The files that we're sending out, the client files are version specific. You can't do half and half. Once this is done, or at the point you're running 10.1. Okay, close and just do a refresh real quick. Okay, there we go. So that's basically what you're looking to see here. All your servers, everything is green. Replication status, service status. At that point, we know that we're good to go on the server side. All right, so what I'll do is I'll quickly show you just what it looks like for a user when they're going to upgrade. So the user's been logged on here. I'm currently running 9.3 on the user's machine. All right, so the user's going to log out for the day. And all right, so the upgrade process will happen on log off or log on. Of course, if you push out the GPO, it can happen at any time the group policy refreshes. So the next time DA runs, if you're just using the script to do it, it'll be the next action of the user. So they'll see these prompts on their side. Okay, give it a few seconds and I'll launch that client machine again. All right, so user log back in. Let's do a quick check here. Make sure everything got upgraded. All right, so the client is now 10.1. And just a quick reminder, if you're going to be troubleshooting anything, any issues that you got with the client machine, always check this first. Is the %temp% location, and that's where the user's trace file is. We'll have all the information on what happened there. Peek at it. Okay, so this is your trace file, 10.1. Let's quickly scroll through it. It's running just fine. Just 10 seconds. So at that point, the server and client have both been upgraded. It's important to remember, though, that if you're using USB port security, it will require a reboot in between. So just keep that in mind. That's something I don't have installed here. All right, so that's it for the demo. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over here to Mac in just a few seconds. I'm going to switch back. He'll go over the parallel side-by-side installation.
Thank you, Chris. That was very informative. So what Chris just presented to you was the standard in-place upgrade procedure and post-upgrade configuration of Desktop Authority. I want to take the opportunity today to elaborate on an alternate upgrade and configuration strategy. So a standard configuration is simply an installation of the management console to a member server and then hosting the desktop authority services and desktop authority files out on the domain controllers, as that screenshot depicts below. You can see that there's two domain controllers and that my services and my files are hosted out on those two domain controllers. Okay, so an alternate configuration is an installation and configuration that doesn't rely on the use of the domain controllers like we saw previously. So this allows you to evaluate the newest version of Desktop Authority on your production environment without adversely affecting your current version of Desktop Authority. So we refer to this as like a parallel install or a member server install or a side-by-side or a member server scenario. There are a lot of different titles for it, but essentially it's just installing to a member server and you pushing your files out to that member server and installing the Desktop Authority service only on that member server, right? It's self-contained. And an added benefit is that you can then roll out your newer version more slowly to your client machines. And I saw one of the questions, is there any way to control or to throttle the client, updating them, or are you committed when you do an upgrade to just, pull the trigger and push everything out at once? So that's why we're discussing that today. So you have a lot of choices, but these are the basic components. There's 8 listed, 4 on this slide, 4 on the next one. And I just wanted to just to outline them a little bit and give you some of the choices that are involved. If what we have on these slides don't cover what you need to do in your environment, or they don't answer specific questions, there are a lot more choices that we can explore. So it's not prohibitive by any means. Just, call us up and ask us, what you need, or tell us what your problem is, and we'll find a way to work around it for you. So anyway, previous or current settings. If you want to use your current settings, you can follow the migration instructions to restore the DA configuration database from your current server to the new server, and then install the new console against that restore point. That's what Chris was referring to earlier. We do have a couple of KB articles on that. He'll send the links. And you could also just create new settings from scratch on that isolated install and just, mess around with the different settings in the new version and see how it works for you, right? It just depends on your preferences. The replication targets can be one or many. It could be on a domain controller. It can be on a different share on your domain controllers, maybe outside of sysvol. You can utilize member servers or many member servers, or you can do a hybrid of both. It depends on, what you're doing and for what purpose. But there's a way to address all of those different considerations for each different situation. Script assignment, the assigned script runs only after authentication. We don't have a way to control where the user authenticates to. That's strictly Microsoft function. So the logon script only runs after authentication. So we can control what happens after authentication. So immediately after authentication, the logon script that's assigned on the Profile tab in Active Directory for that user's account will execute from NetLogon by default, or from a specific UNC if you put a full UNC path on the logon script name for that user's account. So //server, /share, /whatever script, it will automatically run it from that location instead of NetLogon if that's what you want to do. So that opens up a lot more choices for us. So the script can be called from a specific server or from the default NetLogon share of the authentication server, or the authenticating server. The choice is yours, right? And likewise, the script can reside only in the file replication target that you're replicating to, or it could be in multiple locations. It might also be different names, such as you can assign ABC script in the NetLogon, which calls SLogic on a specific server, or a number of different servers. Typically, the DA administrative service and the update services are going to be located on the same servers that house the logon script, but there are exceptions where the services may be located and installed out elsewhere. There is a sitemap configuration tab in the Desktop Authority console which contains specific settings regarding where the client should attempt to locate the services, and it's extremely versatile. So if you haven't taken a look at it, you might want to just look at it as custom or automatic, and you can specify how you want that client to actually locate those services. You can lock it down to one specific server or site, or you can traverse many. It's totally up to you. So more choices. So files and services for redundancy and high availability. Files and services on the domain controllers provide natural redundancy, right? There's a number of solutions that can be employed for both locations of the script and for the servers to locate the services on. But I think a good strategy is locating a single logon script with built-in logic for locating the specific servers to run the script from, based on the authenticating DC, is a sound strategy, right? For example, you can assign myscript.bat in the net logon, which calls slogic from member server 1 if the user was authenticated by domain controller 1 and if member server 1 is available. Otherwise, go to member server 2, etc. You can get as complicated or as, uncomplicated as you want in that script. And we can also advise you on that in tech support, how to work around those various issues. Computer-based settings. The computer-based settings in Desktop Authority allow the client machines to be managed independent of a user logon. By default, the computer-based management client will automatically locate its computer settings from sysvol policies from a subfolder underneath there named Desktop Authority. But it can be instructed by a simple registry edit to locate those scripts for computer management in a different location. And we do have articles on that as well, how to change that. And you can use the user-based logon script, in fact, to change that location or where computer-based looks. As far as the DA group policy object, we recommend not using the DA GPO for provisioning clients in a parallel installation environment in order to avoid cross-contamination issues. Because the DA client provisioning GPO is machine-based, so it only has one name. So you can't run multiple instances of the same GPO with the same name. You could limit it and use it on one or the other of the install points, but it's recommended not to use it because it's easy to make mistakes and end up with those files or components getting cross-contaminated. So we just recommend not using it at all in that environment. So let's take a practical example. I talked about a lot of different locations, a lot of scripts, and a lot of servers, but let's just do a practical example right here. Let's say that we currently have a version of Desktop Authority running on our production environment. We have our domain controllers listed like in the screenshot below in that console, and we plan to upgrade at some point in the future. But for now, we just want to do a fresh installation of the latest version of Desktop Authority as an isolated parallel installation that will not adversely affect or impact our current version of DA or our settings. So what we do is we perform a fresh installation of the latest version of Desktop Authority to a member server. We create shares on it for user-based scripts and then computer-based scripts, respectively. My share names are UBM for user-based management and CBM for computer-based management in this instance. And then we add the member server itself to the list of servers and server manager. You can see in the screenshot, only itself is there. It's the same server we install the console to. And then we install the administrative service to that server as well, and only that server, not the domain controllers. And then we edit the properties of the server and change the replication targets from the default netlogon and sysvol respectively to UVM and CVM. If you have any questions or reservations about how to set the shares or the permissions on those shares, just look at sysvol policies and the netlogon share in sysvol and just copy that. And that way you'll be able to set the permissions properly. In general, if you use authenticated users, that would cover both the machine's permission and the user's permissions to those particular shares. Okay, so once we've done that install, we've got a isolated install sitting there ready to be used. It's not going to be used unless we change the logon script name on the user's account in Active Directory from our production SLogic, which is running out of the netlogon share, it's running that other version, to the new path, whatever it is. I can put my server name and my share and SLogic there to call it directly from that member server I just installed it to. Or I can create another batch file and put that out in netlogon, which also calls the script from this server. It's my choice. So also, if I want to, I can set the machine sysvol path registry value, which alters the location that the computer-based settings will load from. So remember, it's going to try to load from default from my sysvol policies desktop authority folder, but I'm going to change that to tell it to load from my server name and the CVM share, computer-based management. And as I mentioned before, I can even use an element in that script to registry element to change that value, right? So now I'm ready to simply log on and test this and see how it's working out for me. And as you can see from the screenshot, I'm running version 10.1.0.1006, and it's launching from my member server from my UVM share. So that's pretty much it. That's my presentation. Thank you all for attending, and I want to turn it back over to Chris.
All right, thank you, Mac. All right, so at this point we can do question and answers. We'll take a look here first at our chat, see if we have any questions here. Also, if you have any suggestions for any future content for these webinars, just feel free to post it in there. We had some requests for things like how to set up application launcher, USB port security, things like that. So anything you're interested in seeing in our future content, just let us know. We'll try to get those set up for everyone. All right, so let's take a look at some questions here. All right, so somebody had asked how to upgrade the console but not the client. So actually the console and the clients are version specific. So if you're going to upgrade the console, the clients have to match that same version. It'll get an error. But you can use the parallel install if you want to separate those so that you can do them kind of a little bit at a time and test it. So the question is, how do you get the client update to take place at logout? The update will happen on the user's action. So if the user's already logged on, you've upgraded the console, the next action the user takes. So if it's a logout, we'll do the upgrade then. If the machine was off and they come in the morning, and I log on, it'll happen. If you're using the GPO to push it out, this will actually happen if the machine's, say the user's logged off and the machine's on, and you pushed out through the GPO, it'll actually upgrade the machine without any user even being on. So the next time they come in the morning, it'll already be upgraded. Temporarily disable clients from being updated. When you're in the console, after you upgrade the actual console itself, before you upgrade the services and before you push out your files, your users should still be running 9.3. They're getting their old services still, they're getting their old files still. But once you push out those files and you update those services, then you're on 10.1 at that point. We suggest using, if you want to test it that way, use that parallel install. Currently, there's no way that I'm aware of. The question is that how do you update the USB port security without rebooting the client? USB port security is actually a driver, so for it to be for it to be installed, it has to reboot. That's the only way for it to load. There is really no way to do that. Question, is Expert Assist upgraded with the 10.1 version? Yes, it is. Yep, it's a new version. They're all version specific as well. You'll see that and upgrade it as well.
Wanted to answer this question from John. It's actually a very good question. I think one that's asked a lot. The question is, if we have to go from version 9.2 to 9.3 before going to 10.1, Mac has indicated we only need to upgrade the console. So we don't need to push the clients and then install 10.1? Yeah, that's correct. What you would do is you install, it's always the latest version of the product before you move on to the next one. So 9.3 was the latest before version 10. So we'll upgrade the console only, the server, from 9.2 to 9.3. And then after that setup is completed, then we'll immediately execute the version 10.1 install. And that will bring it up another version and format all the files properly. So it should work out. I believe we have time to answer one more question. This one seems to be similar as from Nicole. When we upgrade from 9.2 to 9.3, do we have to go through all the settings, or can we immediately upgrade to 10.1? So yeah, this is kind of a vague answer. It's hard to understand this, even when we've written it up in KV articles. In a perfect world, you'd be able to go from 9.2 to, the latest version, but there are all kinds of different data formats and different fixes that we put in there in between. So it's more precautionary than anything else that you would upgrade to 9.3, let that setup finish on your console. Don't install the services. You don't even need to launch the console. You just finish the setup, and then you immediately begin the setup of the next version, which is 10.1. So kind of like you would do what Chris actually did, and that's take the Express setup choice for both of them, and that formats the data properly. I hope that answers the question properly for you. I think that's it. I think we've actually gone over our time. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And again, feel free to contact us at support. If you have any specific questions about what we covered, we'll be happy to answer those as well. Thank you, everyone.
To learn more about Desktop Authority, visit support.quest.com/desktop-authority.